feared and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and so jiggle my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
Ooh, we are chasing a therapist's office tonight. We are chasing the Pennant Podcast. I'm your host, Shane, and I am joined by both Joes. I have Biscuit. How are you?
Hi, Shane. How's everything going tonight?
I need more therapy than I already take in.
Oh,
and yourself?
I'm doing okay. You know, another day in the life of this ongoing stalemate between the owners and the players. So I'm just hanging in there now.
Yeah, I'm not happy about it. Then I got Boric over there. Boric, how you doing, sir?
Good. I'm just happy I made Biscuit happy earlier on Twitter with that meme of the Schitt's Creek when I responded to it. Yeah. So, helped him out a little bit earlier today at least. So that's good at least. But I've been paying attention to baseball and everything to try to stay more positive since, of course, hockey has a lot of the Flyers guys coming back. So that keeps me positive. And then I come over to baseball and then it's like, blah. So, got a best of both worlds tonight.
Blah is
literally
very accurate.
Both worlds.
And then I got Andrew. Andrew's the one who ushered in our last two podcasts ago now, where we first started talking about the current state of baseball. Andrew, things still suck, and now both sides don't look great. How are you?
In terms of baseball, it's still not good, but I'm just ready to talk, whether it's positive or negative, ready to just talk baseball. I've been working on schoolwork all day, so kind of ready to take a break from that and get something else going because one of my rush courses ends tomorrow, so kind of a lot backed up here in the end of the 3-week period for that course. So ready to talk baseball, wear my Bryce Harper powder blue jersey because I've been wearing jerseys every Thursday so far this summer, so kept it going.
Very nice. And at your recommendation, I have gotten my first DH jersey in. It is my Ricky Henderson jersey. I had to go with an athletics jersey. Yes, we're Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Yes, Biscuit loves the powder blues that Andrew's supporting tonight.
Amen.
But I love that athletics uniform, man. I just can't get enough. And Henderson was just a tremendous player all around. But quality mention, quality feed over there, Andrew, for that recommendation to go to DH Gate. Very pleased with the first jersey. It took 13 boats to get it over here and 14 different moons. It's insane. But we got it, and I'm very, very pleased with it. What's up?
I was glad it worked out, but that is the one crazy thing is how long it can take, but it's worth it in the end for the quality and the price, so very worth it.
Yeah, very much so agree. But we are going to talk a little bit of baseball today. We're going to give Andrew his break from schoolwork. We're going to get Biscuit probably all riled up again. We're going to get another soliloquy of Boric, and then we're going to get some words once again from Andrew on the now once again stalemate on Major League Baseball. I mentioned it last podcast. I'm a bit of a conspiracy guy. I don't know that I ever buy in fully to any of my conspiracies, but once again, there are things that I find interesting to talk about. We have seen both the MLB and the MLBPA refute reports that have come out at this point over the last 24 to 48 hours, saying that this previous report that has been sent out and published could not be further from the truth. We have not had this conversation. We are not this close in money. We are not that close in games. At this point, baseball looked so bad for so long throughout this entire process, and people were 100% on the players' side. Do you guys feel like maybe Major League Baseball is ushering out some of these reports and leaking them early, and once again, as Andrew has said, no longer keeping these conversations in-house and go ahead and throwing these things out there to try to make these players not look great? Or do we really think that the players are, in fact, rejecting some of the offers that are being made at this point now that negotiations have kind of ramped back up, or what we think ramped back up over the last 48 hours? Andrew, where are you on that potential conspiracy?
I think I would have to agree with that. I think the owners at this point, they're scared, or the owners and the league themselves, they're scared at this point. I think they are going to try to make the players look bad as much as they can because they originally did. I mean, I remember when that first proposal came out, I feel like it was pretty close to even, if not, I think more people were leaning with the owners over the players. And then as time just went on, it just got worse and worse and worse. And at this point, with everything being so public, I think the owners are just going to keep it public at this point, and they're trying to make the players look bad. And they come out with that 60-game proposal. Was that last night or a few days ago? And their goal there is to say, okay, we upped our game from 48 to 50 games to 60 here. Now it's on the players. We agree to the prorated salaries that they've been wanting, so we check that off the box, and they can have that end. So they're trying to say it's still on the players now. Well, to me at least, it's too late for that because you already have the stuff you wanted it public, and now it's leaked that owners don't want to play a season. We said on our rant podcast that there's 6 to 8 owners that said they don't want to play a season at this point. So at that point, it's like, how do you own a team and not want your sport to get out there and play? So that's bad in itself already. And then on top of that, you want it public. The MLBPA is obviously not backing down anymore. So you get Tony Clark's statement. And yeah, he says, I know Joe or Boric, we kind of went back and forth with this in the group chat, but I know in the statement it says they kind of started talking again. But to me, no progress has been made, and the players kind of threw the owners right back under the bus, saying that they want more games still. They're going for 70 now. And then Manfred comes out. I don't know if you guys saw this. It was probably about 45 minutes ago to maybe an hour. And he comes out and says that this whole thing needs to be over. And they had a conference call with Tony Clark today, and he used the word, this needs to be over. And I'm like, well, Manfred, that's on you. You need to find a way to get this to be over. And he says 70-game season is simply impossible. Well, first off, it's not impossible. And second off, I mean, it might be closer to impossible now because of how much the owners and them keep delaying it. And on top of that, that's their whole stance now is they're going to continue to try to delay it. And then after that report came out, they basically said they're not happy with the players offering 70 games. So they're going to take a little bit before they send an immediate counter, if at all. So we had a little bit of hope, I guess, last night, but it's back to where we were. And
it's amazing.
I don't see too much hope anymore.
The way Twitter has worked, we log on at any moment and we see the world crumbling when we're talking about baseball. And then all of a sudden you start seeing some of the local guys, some of our favorite follows. We see some of the local beat writers. We see some of the national guys saying, well, baseball may not be dead. We may have just turned a corner. And it always seems like when things have completely shut out, negotiations have stopped in anything that is this public and this important, that something big is almost right around the corner. It's like, well, shit, how were you completely dead 48 hours ago and all of a sudden baseball's back? It all smelled weird to me. It was all fishy. Nothing totally made sense. And for the owners here, it would behoove them to continue to say the players want more games, especially when you have Fauci out there saying that he would not recommend sports go into October with a potential second wave of the coronavirus. And if we're going to take that health standpoint into consideration and not baseball's greed, or not specifically baseball's greed, it would almost behoove these owners to sit there and try to make it seem that the players want to infuse more games into this negotiation, because that there is no way that can happen, 70 games, if we follow Fauci's particular plan. Boric, you went on a bit of a rant last time about Fauci and about the state of sports returning and returning safely for the long haul. Where are you at today, 48 hours later?
Well, first of all, we're going to be playing the damn playoffs in October. Unless if we somehow move the calendar back in a time machine, we're not going to be able to not play in October. So you can play 70 games because when, Jeff Passan tweeted out the 70-game season, they're willing to take less off days because they only moved the schedule back 3 days. He said the 70-game season would be from, and that was at 2:29 today, would be from July 19th to September 30th. And then they threw the owners a bone this time by giving them a 50-50 split, not of this postseason, but of the postseason you would be making bank on next year because it would be in an actual season where there would be fans in the seats. So they threw them that bone in contrast to how the MLB threw the union a bone because even though not all of us like the DH, that's actually something the union tried to put in 11 and then 16 that I always forget, but Ken Rosenthal kindly brought me back up to when I read his article the other day. So that's something that they kind of threw a reverse bone with. I think you could easily play 70 games because they're willing to go to September 30th, and then you're only starting the postseason, again, 3 days later. So if that much of a difference into October makes a difference, then you ain't playing the postseason anyway. Like, if that's actually how bad of a difference that the doctors think it's going to be, then you're not going to be able to have a postseason regardless of if it ends the 27th or the 30th, if he thinks you can't play into October barely at all, because the postseason is going to go into at least the end of October, and that's if series go quick. So,
which is, again, why I still find this thing to be incredibly fishy. You know, it doesn't – I don't know that it behooves either side to play a 40-game season, to risk your body and risk potential injury and risk free agency coming up and risk the unknowingness of what COVID could potentially still be now or turn into at that, seasonal change, as we enter into late September, early October. It doesn't behoove anyone to play 40 games. So to sit there and say, we want more games, we'll play as many games as possible, when you're already guaranteeing that salary again, nothing makes sense in these negotiations over the last 48 hours.
Well,
so
Shane,
what's up?
I was also going to say in the Rosenthal article, the reason I think it might go to 65 is instead of some weird odd numbers, I can't remember who tweeted it out, but some lesser known reporter tweeted out, why does the MLB keep giving these weird odd numbers when it comes to the percentages players get or the pay they get? Where they would get 40%. It breaks
down to be the same thing.
Oh, yeah. But I'm saying if they did 65 games, it wouldn't be a weird odd number. It would be an even 40% total would be what their prorated would be of their total salary. So that's something that they said might be why 65 could be a nice meet in the middle. So they offered 70, they offered 60. That would be what normally happens in negotiations. But again, this ain't close to normal. So
nothing about this situation is normal. Biscuit, you're a big movie guy. You're an eccentric personality. Where are you at with the possible conspiracy here in terms of the MLB versus the MLBPA? What would make the best movie to you right now?
The best movie, Shane, would have been baseball starting on July 4th and it becoming, revitalized sport in America. Kids, families, and everyone was flocking to the ballpark to catch, a good game, eating hot dogs, grilling. That would have been the best movie. This is a nightmare. This is a fucking nightmare. This is
Rotten Tomatoes score. Give it one.
Oh my God, what's a crappy movie that I know has like a rotten, terrible score on Rotten Tomatoes? You ever see movie 42, Shane?
Yes, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's worse than movie 42. Like, worse than Hugh Jackman with the ball sack on his neck. Like, it was... like, oh God. Like, where does it end? Where does it go? Who can you trust anymore? Like, it's like the wild, wild fucking West out here with all of this. And you know how I told you guys I was taking a shit when when Passan dropped the no baseball, how Manfred said no baseball. Well, very similarly, I was on the toilet again, and I think it was Heyman. It was Heyman when I saw that the deal was almost done, and I said, hallelujah, finally. Oh my God, some normalcy. But it's you don't even know what to fucking think anymore. It's all over the place. Everyone's got a different take story on it at this point. The fucking beat reporters, they're all conflicting one another. And at the same time, as Andrew mentioned, it doesn't seem like anything's getting the fuck done. And it's just like you see these tweets from Passan and Heyman, and they're all like, not close, but progress. What do you see? There is no progress. Like the Rob Manfred is literally going after Tony Clark and vice versa, saying they are not, they're conflicting one another and they are not close. They just seem like they are on two different. They don't even seem like they're on the same book. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I didn't want to go into a rant, but you're right, Shane. It's just so fucking fishy. It's so weird. It's so convoluted. And like, granted, like I said, this is a convoluted fucking world we live in with everything going on. You can't sit here and say like, that this thing could just, wave a wand and it be over. Like there's, it's gonna take some negotiating, but Jesus Christ, like it just seems like there's no end. And now it just feels like our emotions are being played with.
Yeah,
Yo,
and
Biscuit, how about this for a movie for you? I just had a movie suggestion for
Lay it on me. Lay it on.
Christmas. We're going around July 20th already. Let's just say screw it and go 5 days back and go Christmas in July. Have the goofy ass stuff on the board that the players always look ridiculous in when they have that stuff. Advertise that more and actually have the league for once in their lives be good at advertising something, and then start on Christmas in July and then go from there. That would be a good movie. And then in the other thing, maybe we could have the MLB. It never happened, but it would be cool to go to stadiums and relive old games and watch them there. Maybe, be a fun idea. You can hear and stepping into the plate, Joe DiMaggio, in the really weird voice of the announcers that just trying to go, oh yeah, I know, but it would be cool to watch it in the stadium at least because TV's not the same.
I feel like I've cracked it open. 2 different things have happened whilst Biscuit was on the toilet. Maybe they just need to all go into a public restroom together and shit it out.
Yeah.
Just have a quality discussion over a movement. Because what is better than about perfect bowel movement? Nothing. It's the most relieving thing on the planet.
Well, they could have done that in Arizona.
They could have. That was the first face-to-face meeting, which is ridiculous. Unbelievable that was reported to be the very first time they met face-to-face. That's just absurd. But Andrew, you were about to jump in there.
Yeah, I was just going to say one thing that Biscuit mentioned was like the progress that apparently they quote unquote slowly are making, if at all. Well, at this point, it's June 18th. Like, enough with progress. Like, at this point, what progress isn't going to do nothing. It's already basically too late as it is, because every time you try to make a number, like a certain amount of games, Manfred says there's not enough time for that many games. So at this point, enough with progress. If you want to play a season, don't give me progress anymore. Give me, okay, we got a deal. Because at some point, if you make progress 3 straight days and still don't have a deal, well, progress is too late, and it's too late for a season anyway. So I don't want to hear any more, okay, we made progress today.
Well, the other thing is the MLB owners definitely have the money if they're giving them that bone with the revenue split of the bigger playoffs, because like that tweet I said the other day, the owners between 30 people make 10.7 in billions of dollars. Between 1,200 or more players, they only make $4 billion, which is still a lot of money, but that's a big gap. And you're offering them that huge bonus of a revenue split in the money-making postseason, not in this postseason where it's all screwed up and there's very likely 99.9% chance not going to be fans. So that's why it pisses me off that the owners are still pissed off, because they're getting a big bone thrown to them when they already make a crap ton more money.
I think it's tough because I do think it goes beyond just money. Obviously, money is something that is certainly appears to be a driving force for both sides of this argument, and rightly so. How profitable an owner is, or how profitable all of the owners are, indicates how much profit as a whole Major League Baseball is bringing in, and what they are able to do to continue to grow their game. So it's a conversation that you still do need to have. Like, there's got to be a line of how much you're willing to lose or you're willing to sacrifice. Just the same as the players. If this is what your contract is, this is what your contract is. You got to find a way to pay them. The fact that they were actively seeking ways to not honor a contract was disgusting. But sorry. As we go through these negotiations, one of the things beyond money for me means baseball has continued over the last, I'd say, 3 to 5 years, looked for any and every opportunity to force a change that they've wanted that either players didn't or fans didn't, and they just want to infuse their new changes to the game that at this point don't look like they're going to be overly well received. And that's another part of this negotiation now, because we start seeing DH for the next 2 years. For this year, I almost want to say it's a wash, because you want to keep people as healthy as possible, and a pitcher in the batter's box just isn't good for anyone in terms of health. That's tough. But for 2021, come on now. That's a conversation that didn't need to happen.
But that's
what
also
they're working
the
in.
Players Association, because they're trying to throw a bone to the union that wanted that in 16 and 11.
That was the Players Association. That I must have
it's not
that.
it's not that they put that in, but the Players Union wanted that bone in the 11, and that's what Rosenthal said in his article in the 11 and 16 negotiations. So that was kind of a bone the league was trying to throw to the players, because I don't think they want to keep seeing pitchers sitting. For us, it's hilarious, though, that a Nick Pivetta walk could be our last pitcher to bat, though. That's the one thing I do find hilarious about the whole thing.
Freaking Nick Pivetta. Nick freaking Pivetta. Anyone have any? Go ahead, Andrew.
I was gonna say that's the other thing. I mean, it's the DH should just be for 2020 and whatever other rules they're going to implement this year to start off. Everything else, it shouldn't. And even whether you're for the expanded playoffs or not, I still, again, they should just not worry about keeping these rules in 2021. Like, just worry about getting these rules for 2020, get the season in, and then, I mean, it's not like you got to wait another 5 years before you got to come to negotiations again. You're up after one more season, so just worry about whatever rules you want to put in this weird season in 2020, and then just play next year like a normal season, and then in after 2021, when the CBA is up again, then start renegotiating this stuff.
I think they did the expanded postseason because it's also another bone for owners, because they're giving them a 50-50 split. If they also give them an expanded postseason, they're making even more money on the back.
I get that, but they're trying to negotiate too much at this point. Like, they're trying
They have to, because of how close it is. That's the thing. If either side leans too heavily, and I'm blanking on the word. It starts with a C. Compensate, not compensate.
Compromises.
Thank you. Compromises too harshly to either side. That gives that leverage to the other side in a year and a half, when these negotiations come up fully for a brand new CBA that's going to dictate how this game is played and how it's financially divided going forward for the next, I think they're 15 years. I can't remember what the hell they are. But that's what makes this so hard. If you give a little bit here, the owners are going to remember that, or the players are going to remember that, whichever side is sitting here and compromising. Thank you, Boric, for that. That's going to get brought up in 2021. They're going to say, well, look, you were willing to do it then. You might as well be willing to do it now. And the fact that they're looking to implement whatever changes they put into this shortened season, if it happens, into next year too, is just further sitting there and putting that CBA negotiation at risk for whichever side overcompromised. So that's where the stalemate comes in, because you have to be smart. You have to be willing to give a little, but if you go that one step too far, you go that 1% too far, you may have royally fucked yourself for the next 15 years, depending on which side of that argument you're on. And that's what makes this so hard.
But my only thing to that would be, couldn't you say that about letting it go for the next 2 years as well? So, like, say they agree on expanded playoffs for 2020 and 2021, when it's up again, you could say the same thing and, oh, well, you agreed to it for the last 2 years, and I mean, nothing really, so it'd still be there. Like, that same argument, I feel like, would still be there, even if you do compromise for 1 or 2 years. That's why I think, for me at least, I feel like it wouldn't matter too much if they just don't worry about the 2021 season, because either way, that argument is still there, I feel like.
The argument is going to still be there, and again, that's why there's that stalemate. What I would love to see happen, and it can't, is if you want to just say at this point, this season's done, and because of the unique circumstances, maybe we breached the contract of that previous CBA. Both sides agree to do so, and they figure it out now, going into 2021, so they don't have to play an in-limbo season. How often do we hear you have a lame duck manager, on the last year of your contract? Like, that manager doesn't feel great about going into that next season, because there's exactly what they are. It's a lame duck situation. So they ordinarily either get fired, or they get re-upped, or they're in that contract talk right then, and that the direction is going, we're going to extend you, we're going to bring you in, or we're going to keep you here for the next 5 years, whatever it may be. Baseball, the entire sport, is essentially entering a lame duck season. It's impossible. With the current state of things, I think it would behoove both parties to shut this season down. As much as I need baseball back, we all do. Have the conversation now. fix it now. Don't have a lame duck season. It's just the only way in my brain that things can possibly get better. Because then if you give a little bit, it's not just for a year where they can further take advantage of you in 18 months. It's for the next 15 years, or again, however long the CBA contracts extend.
I think
for.
It's 10. I looked it up.
10?
I tried to look it
remember.
up for you, because it looks like the old one was 11 to the end of 21, and then they revised it in 16. So it says 16 to 21, but that's because they revised it. So when you go back and look, it said 11.
Gotcha. So I couldn't remember the exact numbers there, but that's kind of where we're at with that conversation. And this is a conversation. Look, we're going to revisit this later in the pod too, with our final topic. So we'll save a little bit of that for now, and we'll move kind of into just some Philadelphia Phillies talk at this point. So we have, I got all these text messages coming in. I thought it was baseball. It's not. Breaking news is not occurring on this podcast. I would kill to receive some sort of text notification of baseball coming back whilst recording, because my reaction is something that I'm going to want to remember for the rest of my life.
And it'll be recorded
forever. It would be the greatest thing. Like every job interview I went to, wouldn't matter if it had to do with baseball, podcasting, radio, anything. Wouldn't matter. I could be going in for some financial advisor. I'd like to show you this clip of who I am as a human and just show them me reacting to baseball coming back. I feel like that's the best resume you could possibly have.
True. Unfortunately, the only recent baseball news I have is, and this guy's a good pitcher, but it's not a big news for me, that Luke Weaver hired Scott Boras. So good for him, but doesn't get me happy. So, it's the only the recent thing I have from MLB trade rumors on Twitter.
So we have, let's talk about a Philadelphia Philly, because we are a Philadelphia Phillies podcast, though it hasn't exactly felt like one in the entirety of our podcast. Super weird. But before we get into this topic,
Manfred, not our Rob,
not podcast Rob,
yeah,
Manfred Rob. Before we get into this topic, it was touched on a little bit actually earlier today. This episode's going to release in 24 or 48 hours, depending on how the previous episode tracks. But our very own Sean New had Jack Fritz of WIP and High Hopes Radio on to talk the draft and kind of the state of baseball, airing a lot of grievances, just similar to the way that we are tonight, and then taking a dive into kind of the state of the Philadelphia Phillies farm system. And one of the coolest stories for me and for most of us to have kind of come out from the draft that happened, 9 days ago now? I think we're right around that, 7-9 days, is Bryce Harper, kind of emerging as the exact clubhouse leader that you would want in every organization all across baseball. This is a guy who took a break from being the world-class gamer that he is in his free time to call every single draft and free agent signing Philadelphia Phillies have made. He went to the front office and said, "Hey, I need this kid's cell phone number. I'm going to FaceTime him." That to me is just like, that's when a superstar reaches out to you. That's incredible. One of the very first relationships that he developed here in Philadelphia was with another number 1 overall pick, 2016, I think, 15 or 16. I'm blanking on the year right now, but Mickey Moniak. To me, now I love Mickey Moniak, but one of the things that I found super cool was Jim Salisbury sitting down, talking to Mickey Moniak and hearing Mickey Moniak talk about the leader and the human being that Bryce Harper is and was then during that spring training. So 2 years ago. Last year. Jesus, everything's running together now. This is not fun. But when you take a look at this franchise as a whole, we haven't had that true outspoken leader where you can definitively tell everyone looks to this one guy. We had the whole core in 2008, and for that whole run, you could go to Jimmy if you wanted a big personality. You could kind of go to Ryan if you wanted a kind of big personality. If you just wanted to learn the game of baseball, and just be with a true Philadelphia superhero, you go to Chase Utley. But there wasn't just that one single guy that seems to run the entire clubhouse. That's becoming Bryce Harper. So I'm curious to hear what you guys thinking right now about Bryce and about the way that he's, again, we talk about it a lot, how he's come into this city and made himself truly a Philadelphian. And now how he's making himself truly the face of our city in Philadelphia for the Philadelphia Phillies. Biscuit, I'm going to start with you, man.
Well, yeah, Shane. At this point, I wouldn't say I'm like surprised. Don't get me wrong. I think it's really awesome what he's doing, but like I think this is stuff we've seen from the get-go with him. He's embracing everything Philadelphia has to offer to him, and it's beautiful to watch as a fan. At first, I kind of felt like it was, a PR move. He just wanted to make a good first impression. But I think now he's just fell in love with the adoration he gets from the fans. And, he, looks at the welcome that he received when he got here from us. And it's just like he's running away with it. And I think you're right. He's embracing it. He wants to make these connections with everyone. He wants to make everyone feel like they're welcome to the organization. And it's just really cool to see. And as you mentioned, you haven't seen anything like this in Philadelphia in quite some time, with how an athlete, really just ties the entire organization together. And
Zaire Smith does it for the Sixers, by the way.
I mean, you guys know me. I'm not someone who watches any other sport. If baseball didn't exist, I would probably.
Zaire's also not the guy that ties the whole entire Sixers team together.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. He's the seventh best player in the NBA, Joe Boric. But continue, Biscuit.
That was pretty much it. I think it's really cool to watch. Obviously, I think as he continues his tenure here in Philadelphia, he's going to continue just doing what he's doing, which is, making everyone feel welcome, building the clubhouse chemistry, which it's not really hard to think that was something that was lacking in recent years, was clubhouse chemistry. But I think that's something that he's going to, form a clubhouse dynamic that is really unique and dependable, and making everyone feel like they're a part of this, I hate to use the term big happy family, but a part of this organization, and, everyone's on the same page. And I don't know, I could continue to go on about it, but it's just great to see.
I think what's so crazy for me from that standpoint is Bryce Harper's been playing up for his entire baseball playing career from the time he was, I don't know, 3. Like, I feel like he came out the womb 6'1". Like, he was just a superiorly gifted athlete and constantly playing. No team he joined was truly his. He was always the best player on every team, or almost always the best player in every team that he was on. But he was the youngest guy. He was the phenom. I don't know how much you're loved and embraced at that moment. In Washington, clearly one of the top 2 players during his entire tenure there, but it was never his team. Coming up at 19 years old wasn't his team. So I had doubts as to what kind of leader he would be, because he's never had to be. He's always just needed to be the best player, to go out there and exceed expectations on the field. But when it came to the clubhouse, what was he going to be? What kind of human is he? And I could not be more impressed by a guy who is probably for the very first time running a clubhouse. It's incredibly, incredibly impressive. He's just an impressive human being. Andrew, where are you at with it?
Yeah, I was first going off him calling everybody. What surprised me most about that whole thing, how cool it was, like, to see that as a fan. Because I know some people are going to like to say, like, people that aren't fans of Harper from other teams are going to be like, oh, everyone usually does it in other sports too. Well, the difference to me and what makes this so special, it's not like when you draft, like when the Eagles drafted Jalen Reagor the first round, it's not like he's going to be going out there playing with him from game one, from day one. Like, this is baseball, so like these prospects have to develop in themselves. It's going to take a couple years before they actually are playing on the same field together. So I think that's what made this even more special compared to other sports. Like, it's not like they're going to have to be together from day one, like in every other sport. Same thing with basketball. Like when, Embiid, like when Sixers already have Embiid, they drafted Simmons. Those 2 guys are going to be on the court at the same time from day one, from the first game. They're both healthy and all that. So that was truly what, like, kind of as a fan, like, opened my eyes the most, is like he might not even and yeah, he'll probably work out here and there for him, but in terms of playing in the same lineup or whatever, it's going to be probably about 3 years at least before these guys get on the same field at the same time trying to win the same exact game. So that was special. But in terms of everything else, I think, and you mentioned it, Shane, he wasn't the oldest guy there, and going with when he came up with Washington, obviously they've had Ryan Zimmerman forever, so that was probably the guy who's going to lead that team in that sense.
Him and Jason Worth.
Yeah, and then bringing in Worth and everything. So I understand he wasn't the oldest guy in the room, but I think with how much he's taken on with the city, embraced the city, interacts with everyone, and then now he's taken on that clubhouse role, I think along with that, I think it kind of shows he was kind of just with the Nationals because that's who he got drafted with, and he was just trying to make an impact. I think it kind of shows he wasn't really ever fully happy to be in Washington outside of when he tried to make that rookie, or when he did come up rookie year and was outstanding player. It even seemed like he had more energy for himself and the team kind of in the beginning. And I think as you kind of saw things go on through his time in Washington, I kind of think this kind of shows who he really is, and because he likes where he is now, and he likes where he can start his family, where he is, and I think even maybe it goes with his wife too. Maybe his wife wasn't happy with Washington as well. Maybe they're both happy in the city. So I think that is kind of the way I almost embrace it as well. With as cool as it is, the Phillies do finally have a true leader, which they've lacked, especially these last few years. I think it goes to show how much happier he is as well, rather than just being in Washington and just playing the game every day.
I love that. Go ahead, Biscuit.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think, because correct me if I'm wrong, but I felt like I read at least a handful of reports when obviously Bryce Harper was going through his free agency saga that he, if an opportunity presented himself in Washington, I think he would have stayed. I do agree it was never his team when you have stars like, Jason Worth. His first year in Washington was 2011, 2012. And, he was there for most of Harper's career. Then they signed Scherzer. And it just never, he's a young stud, but he's not really anything driving the team. But I don't know. I just don't see – I still think he was very dynamic. I still think, I don't know, if he never seemed not happy. But, he always seemed really engaged and, is a dynamic ball player and obviously had – the 6 All-Star appearances, the MVP. He was no joke in Washington, but I never thought about it like that. I don't really necessarily see it as the case that he was wanting out of Washington.
I remember reading an article, I was going to say, when my mom gave me the Sunday paper, that was Bryce got embarrassed by what Washington offered him. I can't remember who the article was by because that was months ago now. But it was talking about how his offer was embarrassing by Washington, but other than that, he didn't rule it out of his bank of teams. That kind of ruled it out of his bank of teams, more or less. When they offered him a slap in the face offer, then he was like, all right, well, screw you guys. And then
I don't know that he was ever unhappy in Washington so much as that he may not have ever truly been his full self.
Hiding behind the other people, kind of.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
You feel just kind of like this isn't mine. This is someone else's team. And Bork, the article you're referencing is the fact that they offered him a $300 million a lot of deferred money during a rain delay on game 162. And I would be pissed off too. Especially if I'm Bryce Harper. But I don't know that he was ever unhappy in Washington because he's still playing the game that he loves, that he's incredibly passionate about. And, it was still the city that he had his growing up years in, or most of his growing up years in. The remainder of him will obviously be here in Philadelphia. But I think there's part of that, you're a Washington National first, and then you're Bryce Harper. When he gets to Philadelphia and his resume's what his resume is, and he's brought in here at a team that is not very good, that is in a rebuilding period, and he's the guy. Now he's Bryce Harper, the Philadelphia Philly, and I feel like that's important for a guy like him, the guy who's used to being on the cover of everything, to finally feel like, this is truly his. And I feel like honestly, at this moment, I feel like the city is his in terms of all the athletes in Philadelphia. Carson Wentz is as great as he is a polarizing figure in the sports world here in Philadelphia. Carter Hart, we love him, but hockey's not the sport that it should be. You look at Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, they're equally polarizing in their own right. Is Joe ever going to remain healthy? Is Ben Simmons ever going to learn how to shoot? Like, there's no one that captures a city, in my eyes, the way that Bryce Harper does, at least here in Philadelphia. I do think that this is probably the happiest he's been in his career. It's not to say that he wasn't happy in Washington, Biscuit. I think he probably was. But this is a different level. This is Bryce Harper fully being the person and the player that I think he's meant to be. And I think it was meant to be here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, oh, go ahead, Biscuit.
I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up. Did anyone see the Chris Mad Dog Russo comments about Bryce Harper?
Oh, yeah. Not. Yes, when he got mad at him for coming out because he didn't play up to his contract. Basically. Well,
yeah, he fucking went on a tangent about players speaking out about the current state of baseball. And it was basically like everyone gets a free pass except Bryce Harper because fuck that guy. And it came across my Twitter, and I didn't read it till I think sometime this morning. But it is truly just like you're targeting Bryce Harper for no reason. You're making false claims about how he played last season. And the fact that you're like, well, if Anthony Rizzo tweets or Mike Trout tweets, they're, champions. The other ones, like, the perennial, like, angel of baseball. And he's like, I'll deal with that, but Harper has done nothing. And
Harper had a better season than Rizzo last year, first of all, so that's why that had no logic in it from the first place.
I don't think Anthony Rizzo, obviously Mike Trout's the best player in baseball.
Yeah.
It's really hard to compare Harper to Mike Trout. Not that Harper's not, something special, and not that I think he's not capable of producing better than he's done last year, but like, it's Mike Trout. But anyway, I don't think Anthony Rizzo is a 6-time All-Star with a Rookie of the Year under his belt and an MVP award under his belt. And not to get into it, but Bryce Harper did not have a bad year by any means. It was almost
second best season to the MVP.
Yeah, he did great. Like, I think the most, if you just look at his, like, basic stats, home runs, RBIs, on base percentage, batting average, OPS, like, the only number that really kind of seems a little down is his batting average. But other than that, like, second most home runs in his entire career, first amount of, he career high is 114 RBIs. On base percentage, you wish was probably a little higher, but 370 isn't bad. I'm pretty sure it was higher than that too. The OPS was a little shy of 20 points, being a little shy of 20 points of 900. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't get the Harper's a villain narrative anymore. Like, I just don't get how you could sit there and stomach that crap when you see what he's done, like, for our organization. But you hear about, everyone in baseball probably knows that he's, contacted the minor leaguers coming into our system or the prospects we drafted. The villain narrative doesn't work anymore, and I'm just so sick of hearing shitty things about a guy for no fucking reason.
Well, isn't it also? Okay, I was just gonna say, isn't it also supposed to be run production that weighs more? That's what everyone says in today's game, rather than your batting average is great. When everyone doesn't give a crap about strikeouts anymore, everyone's like, you bat in a bunch of people. Because some guys that have higher averages than Harper, I don't remember who they all are because it was a couple months ago on MLB Network. They have more strikeouts. It's just he had a lower batting average. So yeah, like the batting average is run production, and how great of a run producer you are should be a little bit superior to if your batting average is a little bit inferior to a couple other guys that have more strikeouts than you, when apparently no one cares about that anymore. So
one of my favorite things was, because I was a very defensive Twitter warrior for Bryce Harper during the 2019 season, and one of my ultimate favorite things was when I was in arguments with Braves fans on Twitter, and they would be like, Harper sucks because he strikes out way too much. And then I would kindly remind them who was the National League leader at the time in strikeouts, which was Ronald Acuna Jr. So they could all kiss my ass.
I think Andrew wanted to say that the one game we were at when a Braves fan was like, first place, and it was like he just kept yelling even louder in the row as he was walking out. Remember that, Andrew?
Yeah, it was like April, and he's bragging about being in first place, and I was like, we still got like 5 months left in the season.
Andrew, you were about to jump in before they got on their rant there. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, not that I'm justifying the criticism for Harper, but unfortunately, when you're with the social media now today and everything, when you sign that big of a contract in the offseason, and again, I know he had a fantastic season, but he did kind of get off to a slow start, and especially in a big city like this or anywhere that was ripping on him, when you sign that contract, everyone expects him to come out like with fire and get off to a great start. So, again, I'm not justifying it, but I think he kind of dug himself in a way his own little hole just because of the slow start it kind of came out to be with getting the contract, signing so late. People viewed him as being like greedy and everything. So I think that in a way kind of hurt his reputation in this past offseason at least. And that's the only reason why I think a lot of the criticism like came out to be like that, just because of the way it kind of started in Philly was like not the best month of April. And obviously he turned it around, and I loved him. I was always on Twitter defending him as well, Biscuit. I think that's where it kind of came from in terms of criticism wise.
Personally, Go ahead, Biscuit.
No, you go, Shane.
I was going to say a lot of the things first impressions for most people, right or wrong, are the things that last longest. And even if you've rightly corrected whatever that was, and people begin to start seeing you a different way, there's a piece of that initial memory that does not leave you. So anytime you show a fraction of who you were at the age of 19, it immediately ramps up, times 100 for you in the way that you can recall it. And suddenly it's that much easier to forget a bunch of things. And not only that, he's an outspoken kind of a guy, and he's a colorful guy, so most people want to sit there and see, just a well-tailored, black, charcoal suit with white dress shirt, tie, walk out there with like a normal clean haircut, maybe a trimmed up beard or no facial hair, and just sit down and be like the perfect representation of like a 1950s American, and that's just not Bryce Harper. You look at him and he's eccentric. He's going to wear, flashier types of things. At times he's going to look like a frat boy because, well, he's 25 years old. Well, 27 now, but anytime that he does, like if he wears what could be called hipster glasses, people remember him being 19 years old saying clown question, bro, and shit like that. If he's playing games and he has longer hair that's in a man bun now, like those are all things that say he's still a 19-year-old kid, because he's not allowed, because of who he is, to have that same luxury as you or I. Like I have longer hair now. No one sits here and criticizes me. I don't get that same type of shit. Bryce Harper does, because he's Bryce Harper. And I think that's the hard thing. And I don't know how the hell we transitioned into this. We were talking about him being a clubhouse leader. Now we're analyzing every part and aspect of Bryce Harper, the face of the Philadelphia Phillies. But he's an incredible leader. He's an incredible teammate at this point. I'm happy to have him in our city, and representing this organization and our city as a whole. I think he's done a phenomenal job in such a short time, and I'm excited to see what he will continue to do. Does anyone else have any final thoughts on Bryce Harper before we transition back kind of into the game of baseball?
I was just going to say, before we went, the article I read a couple months ago on Todd Zalecki, I was able to pull back up about how invested he is in our farm system. He said, I can talk about high school guys, I can talk about college players in this year's draft and things like that. And he's talked about that in past drafts. And then Zalecki goes on to say how he talked to him about Bohm and other prospects in our system already and guys in the draft. So he's invested at every level. And I don't know if you guys remember, but like an interview or so after he got here, he already knew names in our farm system when he was interviewed, and he was referencing people he liked. I don't know many people that would know that as soon as they come in right away. And most people wouldn't do the research on that when signing with an MLB team. They'll probably do that later on. So that was impressive to me from the forefront. So I think he's going to continue to be a great leader and FaceTime most of the draft picks that he thinks definitely have a chance to make it. Of course, that's a hell of a lot easier in this year's draft when you only have to FaceTime 5 people compared to 40. But it is what it is. He can do it. He's got the time.
Anyone else have any thoughts there before we transition?
No, I just wish I was watching him hit home runs tonight, but
so do I. Thanks for making me depressed once again.
Thank you, Andrew.
No problem.
So we're up to 50 minutes now, so we won't spend too much time on this one. But there was, one topic that I did kind of want to get into tonight. We sit here and we've critiqued the MLB as a whole. We've questioned what has been truthful and not truthful about the MLBPA and the entire negotiation process at this point. And I mentioned at the forefront of this podcast how much therapy I already go to and how much more I'm probably going to continue to need. Thank you, baseball, and everything else in life. But I do learn one thing in therapy every single time. It's that you can't just see a problem for what it is. You have to actively work towards correcting it. We're obviously not the commissioners of Major League Baseball. We have no hand in any of these things. But in some small way, for the couple hundred people that listen to our show every single month or whatever we're at now, we are voices of this game in some capacity. So I'd like to kind of take a moment here and see what kind of things we would do if we were in a position to help the game that we love. We've sat here and we've criticized the DH thing. We've criticized the money. We've criticized so much, but we haven't brought a ton of solutions. So I'm curious to hear what our group can kind of come up with in terms of saving the game of baseball. I'm actually going to start with Boric. So Boric, go ahead, man.
Well, one of my things was originally, it wasn't a 50-50, but it was some type of revenue split for the postseason, because that would help the owners to stop bitching about their money on the back end at time, where I was surprised the association even offered a 50-50 for now, but I don't see them doing that for the long haul. But some type of revenue split for me would work. Unfortunately, I think for most younger fans, the universal DH is better, because I don't think most younger fans give a rat's petunia about Bartolo Colon hitting a home run, because I don't think most of them knew who the hell that was. I think when he hit that home run, most people that were into baseball that knew who Big Sexy was knew, but other people were like, I don't give a crap about. Where, like, Matt Cain and Cole Hamels, okay, casual fans probably knew, because Matt Cain was still dominant at that time, who he was, and knew who Cole Hamels was potentially. They knew who both of those guys were. But Bartolo Colon, like, that's a thing that I don't think most people knew who in God's creation he even was when he did that. So, and then I think Kaz hit one. I don't know if it was when he was with the Rays or when he came back or something. So either way, like, nobody knows who half of these people are when it comes to pitchers, because they don't pay attention to the game enough. I think if you had more offense, you would bring in a younger fan pool, unfortunately, where I like to see pitchers bat, because you have guys like Bumgarner and Scherzer, and DeGrom's good at hitting too. So, like, you have a bunch of different guys that can hit still. It's just, and I'm more of a traditional person, but I think for younger people that would help. And it would also help to probably have some other bridge, like, committee to help bridge a gap, rather than just having the association and the MLB, because obviously just having two and not having an intermediate does not work between these two sides. So that might not be a half bad idea to have something like that with former players and maybe some former executives and people that are willing to come back and help out and stuff like that. Something like that could help, because obviously this two-sided thing is not really working. So,
Andrew, what do you have on it?
I would say, first off, in the negotiations themselves, I put this out on Twitter earlier, and I think I mentioned it in the last podcast. First thing I would do is stop making everything public. You're not helping anyone in that case. You're just frustrating the players in themselves. We all saw them do the everyone. I mean, a lot of the different stars were tweeting the phrase, "Just tell us when and where," because they're ready to get back out there. The owners obviously are getting frustrated. Every reporter's starting to have mixed reports, so now you're just getting. I mean, fans were already frustrated, but just the tease we had from last night to today, I mean, it's not helping anyone. So I think the first thing, the best thing that just everyone in general, just like make it private. Just look at every other sport. They were all private basically outside the first 2 weeks of the pandemic when everything was bouncing back and forth on what they were going to do. Outside of that, everything was pretty much private. They went in-house. I mean, the NBA got their Players Association involved. They brought in a big company in Disney and they just made it all private, and they found a way to get it all done. And obviously, in today's media, something here or there, small might get leaked, like the destination of where the NBA wanted it got leaked out. But all in all, it was pretty much private. So my first thing would be forget about everything that's already been public. It's obviously a mess. Fix it by just starting in-house, making it private again. That's the way both sides probably wanted it from the beginning, and both sides kind of just got mad from the beginning, and we were leaking each other's things. We were leaking each other's thoughts, and it just became a mess. So that'd be the first thing. I guess if they're okay with the 50-50 for this year, go for it. I'd say games-wise, I think at this point, you got to keep it prorated. I think obviously we all want more than 60 games, but I think the players need to agree on something smaller than 70 because it's just not going to happen. So I would say shoot for like 62 to 65 games if they would be able to do that. If not, just 60. And if they really want to get on the field, I think eventually they might give into the 60 as long as it's still prorated. And then in terms of just overall rules in general to try to get fans, obviously you hear the complaint about how slow the game's getting here and there, and it's kind of the way the game's changing, and you got all these hitting coaches and everyone trying to take pitches after pitch to get the pitchers out of the game earlier. And I think people have mentioned before how small the strike zone is. So I think one thing, as big of a traditionalist I am, if we're going to change a rule, I think it'd be interesting, and I don't know what you guys would think, but maybe expand the strike zone a little bit. Make the players swing a little bit, and I know they probably won't pass it, so I know that might be unrealistic. But I think that would be an interesting rule, is because I know in the MLB, it's a pretty small strike zone compared to other kind of leagues in terms of like college and everything. So I think if you expanded that a little bit, that would help it out a little bit. And one other rule is they need to figure out the replay rule. I mean, there's just too much time in between that and everything. And
they have a rule for the time on that, and they still take 7 centuries per replay.
Exactly. They say 30 seconds, but if you go 45 seconds, there's no punishment. So
your biggest thing was just shut up, like stop releasing stuff to the press, though, because like that's something I think I brought up on the last podcast. I'm sure Biscuit and Shane agree with, because I don't know why the MLB is so public compared to like every other sport. Like you said, that's just a money point where they have to just shut up sometimes and just solve. Shut up, solve.
Well, I think it became so public because there's so many people on one side or the other, and they kind of wanted. I think they started getting scared on which side people were taking, so they kind of tried to make enemies out of both sides, and rather than helping it, which they should have known, it was going to make everything worse. So
I think the big thing is the fact that the players' union is genuinely one of the most powerful entities in the entire country for literally anything. And the owners know that. Major League Baseball knows that, and I think every time a collective bargaining agreement nears or a contract is up or the opportunity to renegotiate terms, the owners see that as shit. You know what? We can take back a little bit of that power, and we can try to run our game again. And I just don't see that ever really changing. But they're going to keep fighting it, and as long as they do, we're going to find stalemates such as this one, and we're going to see some pretty, dirty grievances, dirty laundry. I can't remember which one of you guys are saying that, getting thrown out there, every 10 years or so at this point, which is, it's a shame. It's an ugly way to view this game, to wrap up decades here, or start new ones, I guess it is. Biscuit, what kind of things would you love to see out of the MLB to kind of right the ship of their game now?
I don't think there's anything really wrong with how the game is played. Yeah, like the replays, they take up some time, and pace of play, like it might be an issue for some people, but it's never anything that's really bothered me. I think this is more of a marketing attendance issue with just how baseball is marketed and there aren't any people in the seats, and I think that comes down to making it more affordable for people to go to games. And I'm not talking about concessions or food or anything like that, but 162 games is a long season, and I think every sporting event, whether it be football, hockey, basketball, it's you're paying a pretty penny to go to one of these events, but I think there's more of a rationale behind going to other sporting events because the seasons aren't very long. But at the same time, for 162 games, it's just virtually impossible at this time to really have a packed stadium every single day unless you're like Fenway Park or a historically known stadium that, draws a lot of tourism. I also think there needs to be ways for baseball's bigger events to be more celebratory and more marketed, like the All-Star Game, Home Run Derby. I think there needs to be more marketing and promotion behind the awards every year. Like one thing that was talked about early when the coronavirus first started was the idea of when leading up to the World Series, you do all the awards. You do like a ceremony for all the award winners, like MVP, Rookie of the Year, Cy Young. You play the All-Star Game and the Home Run Derby that week. And it all just kind of segues up to like the biggest baseball event of the year. I think that would be fucking awesome. And I think with something happening every day throughout a week leading up to literally the World Series, I think that's something that can get all eyes back on the sport. There's something going on every day that you might want to check into. I just think it's something that could garnish a lot of attraction for fans just because it's 1 week with all baseball all the time. And the last thing, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm a wizard with my knowledge about this, but it's something that I've done a little bit of reading about today. And from my understanding, it's something that it sounds like it really sucks. And that's MLB's blackout policy. I was reading a Forbes article earlier, and it literally, and this is a quote, the league's blackout policy is the number one complaint by fans, but for decades now, the league has held on to them like grim death. That's
it is terrible.
It shows you what Forbes thinks of baseball.
Shows you what people think of baseball.
Yeah, you ain't shitting. But like I said, I'm no expert here, but all I know is that it literally provides less access to viewers in certain areas that prohibits them from being able to watch Major League Baseball. I'm no business wizard, but limiting the amount of consumers from being, able to get exposed to like the product, that seems like a pretty fucking stupid strategy. You know what I mean?
No, I agree with you. It's blackout policy is terrible, and I pay for MLB TV every year, and every year there's certain teams wherever I'm at the time. There's certain teams blacked out depending on the region, and every single year, it never works, but every single year I send in MLB a long email complaining about the whole blackout thing. I'm paying. Since I'm a student, I get the student discount, so it comes out to be like $75 for the MLB TV package. And every year I send them an email complaining, I'm paying for this. There shouldn't be any blackouts. You advertise all the games and whatnot. And every year they respond with the same thing. They respond with, they blame it on the TV companies because they say they don't allow them to show it because it's blacked out in that region and they want you to get the cable package and everything. So that's what they blame it on, even though I don't buy it because when you watch the MLB TV, you're still watching it on the local TV. It's not like MLB has their own separate announcers or anything. Like when I'm turning it on, I'm still listening to whatever local region announcers and TV station it is. So It's a very weird situation.
Why don't we pitch that to them? We can all be their announcers. Just have their own separate announcers.
I still think bullpen pitchers on off days and starting pitchers who shouldn't be playing or on their rest days should all be allowed to commentate and call a game. I think it'd be brilliant. They're just sitting there talking anyway. But no, I think that those are all really interesting things. I think they're all really interesting ideas. I think the one thing that I always come back to when I think about what I would like baseball to do is it all comes down to me for one single word, and it's accountability. It's easy to view the things that we see are wrong, and then when they are repeatedly wrong year in and year out, and we see the way the technology is advanced our viewing of these games, and all it does is put a microscope on all the things that are wrong. When we see nothing changed, that to me is infuriating. There are things about this game, and not that you want to sit here and make this particular argument just about umpires, but it's the easiest thing to talk about this particular word and argument. Umpires can kick the shit out of a call and not have to respond to anyone and be out there the next night. Like these crews, they're getting older. They have this tenureship about them. They don't answer to anybody, and they can fuck up everything every single night. They can very easily be seen to just, you know what, like bookies, actual bookies, not like Vegas, but like if you're in an area that can't. So I know this because both of my old bookies, this is literally what they did. They would study, and when you took baseball bets, they would study the crews, and that's how they would determine their lines for betting, because they would say this team or this crew always calls a game poor in the city of Philadelphia for the Phillies, or this crew does it in New York. That's a problem. If low-life bookies could sit there and research into this and find the statistical anomalies from a crew, you think that the viewers who watch all these games can't sit there and pick up on that fucked up stuff too? We absolutely can. Why are they not held accountable? That to me is infuriating. Another thing, we've seen a lot of former players come in and commentate on this game, and Andrew, it might have been you saying, a lot of these former players come in and talk about the way the game used to be versus the way the game is today, and to try to ramp up excitement for the changes of the game. Is that you who had that argument?
Yeah, I think I've said that before.
Right. That's incredibly important. Why are we still paying someone to sit there and say the game sucks and it was better when I played, rather than saying, man, this is how we used to do it, and to see the way that the game has evolved and to see this product now, to get excited about this, that, or to get excited about this shift in strategy. This is exciting. But no, we're not telling these guys it's okay, or it's not okay to sit there and just diminish the sport's growth. We just keep letting them go out there every night.
Because even guys like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought you were done.
No, you're good.
Even guys like, I'm just gonna take Jeff Francoeur because that's who I was listening to when he was talking about it. Because I mean, I know he's not even one of the guys that have played the longest in their career. I mean, he played from 05 to 16, and he was talking about from like when he came up to a rookie just to when he ended his career, how much the game evolved and changed and everything. And like to your point, when you have all these guys talking about how much better it was in the beginning of their career, in this case from the beginning of his career to the end of it, I mean that says it all right there. Rather than even just hearing guys from the 90s and John Kruk talking about what was better when he was playing and everything. So when you when you have guys talking about it just from their rookie game to their end of the career, like that should be alarming in itself.
It is, and that's tough. When the people selling your product are actively against it, that's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. So that's one of the biggest things for me is accountability. When something is proving to not work or not providing you with the necessary results. If I fuck up at work every single day and say how much I can't stand my job to all of my customers, and they got to go, it would behoove them to go elsewhere, or things were better this time, or things are better over there, I'd be fired so damn quick. How is that not the same when you talk about umpires, when you talk about TV analysts, radio hosts, different things like that? You got to breed excitement for this game, and it starts with the people who are selling it to you.
And the other thing I would say is when you have, I mean, again, I'm gonna go back to some different rule changes, and this is something I brought up in our group chat a few days ago, maybe a week ago, I don't remember. But even something as simple as changing like the takeout slide rule at second. I mean, if you think of some of the big names, like some of those guys were those aggressive players, and they kind of take that extra aspect away from the game. Like, I mean, for example, here Chase Utley, we saw how hard he'd go in his second. Or I mean, you think of Ty Cobb, how big of a player he was. Pete Rose, like the big name guys are always the guys that went the extra mile to do those things that brought the game the extra excitement. And now when you take away the rule, and now you got guys letting up halfway going to second because they're not even allowed to come close to the guy at second. So he can't even slide anymore because he was far enough away from the bag. They'll call it an illegal slide or whatever, and it's automatic a double play. So even something as small as that, when you used to be excited and okay, this guy might be able to break up the double play, extend the inning, maybe steal an extra run with 2 outs or something. Now these guys are letting up halfway down the line because they don't want to come close to the guy and try to interfere. So they're getting out of the baseline. And it's something like as small as that can like take away a fan because, again, now instead of an exciting bang play at second, third, or even home when you used to collide with the catcher, it's okay, well, this guy can't do anything. And even the blockage of the rule or blocking home plates, now these guys, instead of trying to slide around a catcher or something, they got to go straight into him basically, and it's an automatic out. So like, there's no excitement in trying to go that extra mile for some of these guys.
Well, I was going to say, though, I think banking off of that, that's why I don't completely agree with you on the announcers thing, Shane, because the game in which Manfred and Selig, I can't remember because Buster Olney referenced him on an interview he had the other day, that commissioner before Selig would actually stand up to the owners, and then when he got forced out, that ended that aid. But, like, you have announcers that are kind of being honest because the game has got worse. I mean, like, not having those takeout slides, not having the play at the plate, not being able to see all the aggressiveness, teaching too much of the launch angle so strikeouts are going up. Like, I hate all of that BS with like, oh, just swing for the fences. No, shut the hell up, buddy. Actually swing and get your swing locked in. Adam Hazley should not be swinging for the damn fences. But anyway, I don't like all that, and I think some of that, some analytics are good, other analytics destroy the game in a sense where I think they're just kind of being honest, where football players have said it that have been on the air too, where they're like, well, back in the day, I could have popped that guy so he didn't catch the ball, where now you would get called for roughing.
But
where
that's
back
not, it's the same thing, Bork.
You could check somebody in hockey really hard, where now they actually call it charging, where technically in the rule book was still charging, they just didn't call it. Where a game has changed, but those games are more action-packed in each setting. But
we're not going to go backwards.
So, I understand that, but
then why talk about
honest, it? If you're able to figure out a new wave of baseball that then makes it more exciting in the parameters we're in now, then they would also talk about that. It's just like Andrew referenced before. Manfred's putting in all these absolutely ridiculous rules that he mostly forces in. So nobody's talking about it in a positive when you have kind of a dictatorial commissioner that sometimes just forces stuff in that they didn't even want in as rules, like some of the replay stuff, like obviously some of the rules pertaining to the slides and all that. So not everybody agreed on all sides when it came to every rule, and Manfred just went, oh, well, we're doing this. This is how I want it. He does that more than Bettman, who used to have a reputation to do that, does. So I think it's part of, you're not going to go backwards. We have to figure out a way in this new CBA to interest other people, like Biscuit was getting at with different things. And I think that week up to the World Series thing is a great idea. And also investing more, if you're not going to go to the Olympics like it was in the first year, you have to invest more in the World Baseball Classic, at least then, to make it be more of an event and advertise more, because you have to have something separate from the game that's also a big draw if you're not going to go to the Olympics. And they don't give anybody anything now. So,
World Baseball thing is something that's a conversation I will always have and fight for. I 100% agree with that. But we're wrapping up, or we're rapidly approaching the end here. Like I said, we're about an hour and 15, so we've actually run a little longer than I anticipated. But the fact that we're still pretty much in the middle of a conversation and debate here on this particular topic, this is something I think that we're going to try to revisit on Sunday with the full team. I'd like to get everybody's, kind of collective thoughts here on different ways that we could potentially see improvements in the game. We're cutting this one because I'm about to argue with Boric so hard on some things, and we're going to go 14 hours. And then I'm going to agree with him hard on other things, and then we're going to go for another 14 hours. So we're going to save some of those things for Sunday. Where we can get the whole kind of collective team on this particular topic. But this one's been good again. Like I said, we had a quality Biscuit rant. We had a couple Boric soliloquies. Then we get a bunch of fact knowledge and things from our Oklahomian over there in Andrew. Baseball's tough, man. It's tough to be coming on this podcast, 2, 3, 4 nights a week, whatever we end up working in here, and having to analyze things that aren't really going, the way of baseball. So I hope that we see some positive news by Sunday, and we can start to talk a little joyously. That would be a hell of a nice change of pace here for CTP and the entire baseball world. But let's close this one out here. Send it over to each one of you guys for any kind of a final thought that you may have before we get over to Sunday. And we'll start with Andrew. Andrew, you got anything for us?
I'd say, I guess, keep praying and hoping that a miracle can happen and we get something worked out. Also, if you want baseball to watch, go NBC Sports and Game 5 of the Game 5 of the World Series, I believe, is tomorrow night, and they're playoff showing of every game. So if you want to watch the Phillies win the World Series again, tune into that Friday night.
Absolutely. Biscuit, final thoughts.
My final thoughts for the night, fuck the Mets. Fuck Chris Mad Dog Russo for coming at Bryce Harper. Fuck Rob Manfred, and go Phillies.
Doesn't he have the kindest voice? And he just comes in here with this stuff. I love it. It's just fascinating. You, as a human, you're awesome, Biscuit. I love you.
I love you too, Shane. Thank you.
You got it. Boric, I'm going to have fun talking baseball with you on Sunday night, man. You got any final thoughts here for us?
Yeah, I have a funny one that Kevin Cooney tweeted earlier that involves another one of our pitchers. Assuming that the DH becomes universal, Blanton will become the last pitcher to hit a homer in the World Series. And then he also replied to his tweet and said, that will obviously also apply if the sport fails to exist. But also another thing I wanted to say leading into Sunday is you can't make a less aggressive game even less aggressive and slower. So that's kind of what I was trying to get at, and that's what Rob Manfred's did since his tenure.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. I have several final thoughts here. This is an abnormal one for me to have several. First, and you guys know this one, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to preach Asian Rob because I love Asian Rob. He's a wonderful human. He's designed our merchandise for us that's coming out. He makes me just so much fatter than I need to be because his food is so damn good. And he keeps lining my pockets with money because I bartend for a lot of his special events. So I would highly recommend going to Just Food for your individual meals. If you're in the Bucks County area, just pick something up. He'll cater something that just gives you meals for the week if you want. You want to pick up a tray of lasagna, go for it. Everyone needs a tray of lasagna in your fridge, just like at all times. Like just something that's so necessary. And then if you want to cater different events, if you want me as your bartender, you can request that as well. But check out Just Food. It's 215-794-FOOD, 215-794-3663. Treat yourself. Take it home. I'll even bartend your event with a mask, gloves, and whatever else is necessary at this current juncture. It's going to be weird as hell bartending weddings like this. Got to say. Second final thought that I have is support the Jackdaws. They bring us in. They take us out. They have written us an introductions, a new intro, outro that I have still not even heard. I'm still waiting on that file, but I'm excited about it. Whoever just sneezed, God bless your sorry ass.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bless you.
But the Jackdaws are fantastic. They also have their podcast, The Rookery. They have different Patreon content. Their lead singer is just a wildly talented, human musician. Just he's an incredible person. Definitely continue to support them as you have. If you can spread the word about them and get them additional fans across the country, they travel everywhere. Once everything opens back up again and is safe, they'll be around. So definitely check them out at www.jackdolls.com or just search Jackdolls on, I think, almost every social media platform except Twitter. So that you can get them everywhere else. And then my final thought is I'm proud of Sean interviewing Jack Fritz tonight, talking some Phillies, which we don't do enough on a Phillies podcast, at least not at this juncture. Talking some draft news, and thank you to Jack for coming on and doing this one for us. We always appreciate that. And if you have any interest as a listener to come on and be a guest, at this point, we have fucking nothing to talk about. So if you want to come on and just chat, we'll let you guest on the show. If you happen to be a radio host or another podcaster, we would love to cross-promote with you. You guys can shoot me a text or an email, or I guess you can't shoot me a text. You don't know who the hell I am. You can shoot me a Twitter DM. I think that's how that works. It's no need. What the fuck is my Twitter? You guys know my Twitter?
I thought it was no knees.
Yeah, that's not the thing, though. All right, at Shane_me. Damn. I don't use social media often, but I promise I will respond to you if you send something to me. But that's going to pretty much wrap this one up, guys. We will be back on Sunday night with most of the team again, probably. And we'll talk more baseball, we think, and then more of anything else, because who knows what else we're going to talk about on Sunday shows. This has been Chasing the Pennant Podcast. We still love baseball, even when we're mercifully hating it.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and so jig over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.